Lately, we've been seeing quite a few impressive remakes and remasters. I've always been fascinated by the idea of remaking and remastering a game because most other artistic mediums do not allow for the chances to do so, and even when they do, it's not comparable to what we see with video games. Between Persona 3 Reload, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, and the recent very good release of Trails in the Sky First Chapter, I've been having a blast playing remakes, and I made a whole video on remasters as well, as this year has been filled with them. So to celebrate the very best, or at least our favorites, I invited along an assorted group of JRPG lovers to talk about one of their favorite remakes/remasters of recent times. Some of them are fellow creators on YouTube, but I tried to reach out to some who you may not traditionally see in these collaborative videos, so I hope you enjoy their perspectives, and of course stick around for my remake section at the end. Take it away.
Hello everyone, I'm Arkery, and I'm very excited to be here today to talk about one of my all-time favorite remakes, the 2021 release of Nier Replicant, a remake of the original 2010 PS3 game Nier. And I picked this game because to me it's honestly the perfect example of a remake done right. With every other remake, or even with remasters, as much as I do adore some of them, I can often point out a number of flaws. Ways in which the remake didn't perfectly capture the tone or spirit of the original, or where mechanics were altered a bit more than I would like. Accessibility is important, but it shouldn't completely forgo the original's intent. But Nier Replicant strikes that balance of being a new modern version of Nier, while also capturing, and most importantly, preserving that original experience. The original Nier released for the PS3 back in 2010, but back then for the worldwide release, in order to appeal more to the Western audience, they changed the game around a bit, changing the title to Nier and getting rid of the subtitle Replicant, and they also replaced the younger protagonist who is looking for his sister into a father looking for his daughter. Outside of that, the story didn't really change though, but in 2021 when they remade Nier, they unified it, once again calling it Nier Replicant and having only one version, where you play as the younger protagonist brother Nier, which I do think fits the game better, especially when we're talking about his relationship with his other party members. And this is already a first sign of this new release, bringing us as close as possible to the original vision of the creators. And this is very clear in every single part of this remake. This simply is Nier in all of its beauty. We do have new visuals and a new combat system, we even have some new story content, but it all just strengthens what was there. The atmosphere and the OST is impeccable with a gorgeous art style. The combat is so much more fun and fluid, but what I like the most about this remake is undoubtedly the new story content. The Nier series is known for its multiple endings, and originally this game had ending A, B, C, and D, but in the Replicant remake they added an ending E. Replicant is of course a prequel to Nier Automata, which released a number of years later, but in between these two releases they also released quite a bit of side media, one of which being a novel which sets up some extra narrative connections between both titles. So when the time came to remake Replicant, they adapted this novel into ending E, and besides that they also added an entire arc, which was cut from the original due to time constraints. And I really love that they revisited this plotline, as it's one of my favorite parts of the game and it fits perfectly in that original experience. So not only does Nier Replicant look gorgeous nowadays, it's also super fun to play, has some incredible music, and it even has some new story content to tie up some loose ends to its sequel. And all the while it stays true to the absolute masterpiece of a game that Nier Replicant is. If you haven't played this, I highly recommend it. It's honestly the best starting point for the Nier series, and while I have been praising the remake in specific here, it goes without saying that you need to have a good base game to have a good remake. And let me tell you, this game has one of the best stories and characters that I have ever witnessed in any piece of media. And when it comes to something as special as that, a remake needs to be able to live up to it, and this most certainly does. So that's why this is my #1 favorite remake. Thank you so much, Comrio, for having me on your channel, for letting me join in this collab, and I am very excited to see what everyone else is going to be talking about.
Hi everyone, I'm Mags, aka Avenger Mags on Twitter /X and Blue Sky. I'm a staff writer at Nintendo Force Magazine and a co-host on the Level Up Legacy podcast. I'm here today to share about one of my favorite video game remakes /remasters, and that would have to be Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which released on Switch in 2020. To explain why this is one of my favorite remasters and also why it has been so crucial for the series, let's first take a step back. Xenoblade Chronicles initially released on the Nintendo Wii in 2010 in Japan and a year later in Europe, but it almost didn't make it to North America. A fan campaign called Operation Rainfall formed in 2011 to persuade Nintendo to bring 3 JRPGs, Xenoblade Chronicles, The Last Story, and Pandora's Tower, to North America. Thankfully, it worked, and Xenoblade Chronicles made its North American debut in 2012 on the Wii. I just find it so cool that fans had a direct impact on this game from the start, and their efforts were so worth it almost a decade later with the release of the remaster. In addition to its release on the Wii, Xenoblade Chronicles also received a Nintendo 3DS port a few years later in 2015. While the Wii and 3DS versions both received significant critical acclaim, the Switch remaster goes above and beyond because it allowed more players to discover this game and helped the game realize its full potential. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition achieved both of these goals through combining the series' greatest strengths with several updates and player-friendly features. The best parts of Xenoblade games include their incredible and emotional stories that combine elements of sci-fi and fantasy, their ambitious and vast open worlds to explore, and their fun, engaging real-time combat focused on positioning and timing. This remaster included these strengths and built upon them by adding enhanced visuals and a more modern graphical style. It also included a brand new story epilogue called Future Connected, and it had many quality of life changes like an updated UI, a new casual difficulty mode, side quest markers, and more. This combination provided a perfect place for new fans to jump in, and that's where I found myself in 2020 when I played Xenoblade Chronicles for the first time. I couldn't help but get sucked into the enticing and at times brutal open world as I explored and often bit off more than I could chew with certain enemies. I couldn't stop helping all the NPCs with their mini affinity quests, no matter how silly they might have been. And most of all, I couldn't wait to see what came next in its epic story of revenge, redemption, and ultimately freedom. Xenoblade Chronicles has become one of my favorite JRPG series, and I'm so thankful I decided to try out this remaster because it provided such an amazing first impression and encouraged me to continue playing the games that came after. If you're a fan of JRPGs and haven't given the Xenoblade series a shot yet, what are you waiting for? I promise that if you start this game, you'll quickly find yourself saying, "I'm really feeling it." Bye everyone!
Hey y'all, my name is Crimson Rosso. You may know me of that guy that punched that hooker in the face because she had the audacity to say Cold Steel was better than Daybreak. But that's for another time. Right now, I'm here to join Cool Rim for a collab. Want to start off though by thanking both him and of course my buddy J-Man in this video for recommending me. Been a while since I've been a part of a collab and I got a message from Cool Rim because J-Man recommended me for this. So this is going to be fun. Now, when it comes to the concept of remakes and remasters, I've played a ton. Comes to the territory of not only playing games since I was like 6, but nowadays a lot of developers are relying on that to fill out their library for the year. Not that I'm against that or anything, even if I'd like to see more products, but the point is, I've played a lot of them. Some I've liked less than the original, some I've liked a lot more. But if there's one remaster I absolutely adored, it without a doubt has to go to the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remaster we got just last year. Getting this out of the way real quick, I adore this game. Thousand Year Door is not only my absolute favorite GameCube game, but arguably one of my favorite games of all time. It's one of the very few games that I genuinely consider near perfect and actively struggle to give criticisms for. Hell, you could take criticisms from this game and I just pretend they didn't exist. That's how much I like it. And I love it so much because it was able to take so many things that I thought were cool about Paper Mario 64 and evolve upon them in every possible way. From puzzle solving to gameplay elements, everything about this game was just a treat and a half. And considering how, after this, they slowly moved bit by bit away from the RPG side of the franchise, I only ended up getting more of an appreciation for it as time went on. But sadly, I also felt like I'd never see that era again, as Nintendo just seemed so keen on sandpapering away what made this series so special to me in terms of gameplay. Only then to get the biggest surprise to my nutsack I ever expected with the reveal that this game is getting a full-on remastered/remake. And I could not tell you how excited I was to see this. I waited feverishly for this to release, and when it did, man, oh man, it did not disappoint. Getting to go through the entire game and seeing it lovingly recreated with so many new textures and detail was downright beautiful. Even better was that the game was basically untouched from the original, and they never once tried to change anything to fit a stupid new mechanic that they added in later. Now, I do have a minor complaint about this remake, and while I do love that it's a one-to-one recreation, I would have really liked to see something like a Super Luigi storyline, or maybe an all-new Endless mode after the Pit of 100 Styles. But in reality, even if I do wish they had added those things, I don't think it mattered because I was finally back to the world I absolutely loved so much. With the gameplay I have so desperately missed from this franchise. The addicting turn-based combat mixed with button commands and little mini-games that feel so fucking satisfying to pull off and destroy whatever's in your way as a result. The utilization of partners to create cool combos with the main man Mario. Badge implementation to build your characters any way you want. Whoo, baby! It hits so nice to get that dopamine rush again. But out of everything, the single best thing to experience was the amazing world the devs created. Now, I love the Mushroom Kingdom and all the other wacky shit you travel to in the other Mario games. But to me, there is no better Mario world than the one they create for Thousand Year Door. Rogue Town, Glitzville, the Twilight Village, all of them are just so genuinely unique, to the point where 20 years later, I don't think a single Mario game has ever compared. Closest is maybe Odyssey, but even then, I still don't think it hits that perfect 10 out of 10 world design that Thousand did. If you couldn't pick it up by now, I'm a huge fan of this game, and I could not recommend this enough. If you want to experience what me and so many others consider the absolute pinnacle of not only Paper Mario, but the pinnacle of Mario itself, I cannot stress enough that you should play this. It is 100% a masterpiece. And that's it for my section. I want to take a second to give another big thank you to Cool Rim for having me on here, and another thanks to my buddy J-Man who recommended me for this. Seriously, thank both of you. It's been a blast to be in another collab to work on. That's it for me for this section, though. Thank you for your time, and if you're interested in what I make, go check out some of the stuff on my channel. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you around.
A crossover with Comrio? Let's do it. If there's one thing that these past 5 years of the industry has shown us, is that we're definitely in the remakes and remasters era of gaming. That may not be the ideal place to be for some who prefer more original titles in this modern era, but you gotta think about it. The gaming industry is over 40 years old. There's countless games and entire franchises out there that came out throughout the history of this industry since the very start all the way to the golden era that many of us were either too young to experience or straight up weren't born yet. So the idea of giving a lot of these different franchises, especially dormant IPs, a second chance to prosper in the limelight sounds pretty cool to me. But getting back to the point itself, there's quite a few remakes I've enjoyed in the past, ranging from some I thought were pretty entertaining for what they were, and others I may have more issues with than most. But if you want to ask me about the remake that made the biggest impression on me, the one that I always bring up as the golden standard for what remakes should be, it's definitely Square Enix's Trials of Mana. Now there's so much I can say about the amount of joy I've had playing Trials of Mana back in 2020, but you need to understand, prior to this I've never heard of this franchise before. When Square Enix unveiled this and the collection of Mana back in E3 of 2019 during Nintendo's presentation, unbeknownst to me, it was such a huge deal for longtime fans of the Mana series as well as old school fans of Square Enix in general. The remasters of the old games looked cool enough, but the title that really stood out to me the most was Trials of Mana. From all the footage I was looking at, all that ran through my mind was how cool this game looked. The art style of this game was so appealing and vibrant to me, and as a longtime fan of JRPGs, I'm someone who values that sort of thing a lot since I'm a sucker for pure fantasy-esque settings and environments. Everything about the game had me really intrigued, and when I heard that it was a remake of the third entry of the series, Seiken Densetsu 3, I got even more intrigued, because I could tell that this was Square Enix's pure and honest effort to try and revitalize a once dormant IP and bring it to a new generation, and I was all for it. And when Trials of Mana finally released, it blew every single expectation I had for it out of the water. So basically, you're in the world of Mana where chaos is about to erupt and you've got 6 heroes to choose from. And out of those 6, you pick 3, each with their own motivations and backstories that shape their journey. And depending on who you pick, some of your characters might actually share the same villain. That design alone still feels innovative to me even by today's standards because it encourages replayability by giving you a new adventure each time you play. But the entire adventure you go on with your chosen characters traveling from region to region, taking down bosses, discovering new environments, and watching the drama unfold between them all while staying true to the heart of the original game filled me with so much joy. In fact, that's actually my favorite aspect of this entire game. The fact that it stays 100% faithful to the original Seiken Densetsu 3 but also adds in a lot more content to the overall package. The story in the remake is the same as the original, but now a lot of the NPCs have a lot more lore and contributions to each of the 8 playable characters' storylines. All of the environments in the remake are the same as the original, except now they're much more expansive and have hidden goodies and treasure chests that you can find at specific spots, which encourages exploration. The gameplay, again, same as the original, but now you're giving much more options on how you want to approach battles since now you can dodge, jump, and create unique combos on enemies, as well as switch party members mid-battle. And I can go further down the list of why I love this game and why it made me a permanent fan of the Mana series. But the focal point of it all is that similar to Trails in the Sky First Chapter, Trials of Mana is a true one-to-one remake by definition. This isn't a reimagining where they'd make significant changes to the story for the sake of artificially bringing a new experience for current-gen audiences. This remake loves the original, respects the original, and has faith that the original can find new life in today's audience, just like it did in the past. And wouldn't you know it, Trials of Mana ended up being the reason why the franchise was given new life. With all that being said, please pick up Trials of Mana if you haven't. It's seriously my favorite video game remake out there and reminds me why Square Enix has their place in the industry.
Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here, and thank you Camarillo for allowing me to be in your club. It was an absolute pleasure. With that said, let's talk about one of my favorite gaming remakes, and that would have to be Star Ocean: The Second Story R. Now, I was actually new to Star Ocean when this remake came out, as I played through First Departure, The Last Hope, and The Divine Force. So when I saw this remake got announced right afterwards, I was immediately blew by the roof of how good this looks, on how this is essentially a better version of Star Ocean: The First Departure R, as this basically takes the aspects what made the original Second Story great, from its visuals, to the overall story, to the overall characters, and just revamps it in this lovely HD 2D style that you see in the other Team Asano games. And honestly, it just looks absolutely wonderful with these beautiful same backgrounds, and all these character sprites are looking just crisp. But what really got me impressed was the revamped soundtrack, but most of all, the overhauled gameplay, as they took the original both Second Story and even aspects of First Departure R, and give it a little bit of a modern twist, with adding things like a perfect dodge system akin to the blind sides, as well as also a stagger system, and even being able to summon your reserve party members. Something similar to the likes of even Tales of Arise, which I thought was pretty cool. As well as spell pausing is no longer an option, as you can able to activate spells more seamlessly, which is absolutely amazing. And overall, coupled with some amazing fan service, like even having past and future Star Ocean protagonists as assist characters, was really awesome. And even there's even additional new content with the likes of things like fishing, for example, which was really cool, and just flying around as well as riding on your bunny, and having these amazing quality of life features like even knowing when private actions are available and being able to fast travel and being able to spend points on skills without going to, like, say, a skill vendor to buy new skills. That was an amazing quality of life feature, and that's something that really made me impressed with about this remake. Like, everything about this just blew my mind, and it's something I kind of wish that future Star Ocean games take inspiration from. Not so much to say here other than that this is a fantastic remake, and anyone who's new to Star Ocean, best try this one, as it's arguably the best Star Ocean game ever, and this remake further exemplifies that. It's an amazing game with tons of amazing build potential, great characters, amazing soundtrack, and just overall stunning visuals. And that is why I consider it to be my favorite gaming remake or at least one of my favorites. Anyway, thank you Comrio for allowing me to be a collab. Until then, Mad Kaiser out, and I'll see you next time.
When my good friend Comrio contacted me and asked me to make a video about my favorite JRPG remake, the closest thing that could come to my mind was actually the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remasters. Now, this project was recently released by Konami, and these are two of my favorite classic JRPGs of all time. But Konami didn't just remaster them. They actually gave the backgrounds new visuals, all new character portraits, and some great quality of life features. The remasters ended up being one of my favorite releases of this year thus far, and it was everything that I was asking for. The translation was great, the beautiful rendition of some of the backgrounds and some of the towns and just the imagery, and just again, the quality of life features that was featured in these remasters were really everything that I was looking for. A great gallery mode, a great sound mode, and it just reminded me of why I loved these games so much, but with that 2025 coat of paint. In my personal opinion, this still stands as my favorite release of a classic JRPG or remake, so if you will, and a re-imaging of what was once one of the greatest, some of the greatest JRPGs ever. My initial pick was definitely Star Ocean: The Second Story R, but seeing as how that was also a popular choice, I wanted to go with something a little bit more, I don't want to say lesser known, but something a little bit more from left field. And that would have to be the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remasters. I love the time skip option. I just loved feeling this new coat of paint and what a 2025 edition of these beloved games would look like. So for this sake of this video, I'm definitely going with the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remasters. To Comrio, I'll see you all over at CaliQ Games, and I can't wait to see everyone else's choices on this video. Peace.
For my remake, I had some good ones to pick from. I seriously debated going for Nier Replicant's recent release, so I was glad when Arcry took up the challenge of that one since I ultimately decided to choose another. I settled on a remake that, while very good, has been overshadowed by other remakes in general and definitely by the other games in its own series that were released before and after it. Back in 2017, the remake for the second Fire Emblem game, Fire Emblem Gaiden, came out titled Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. That remake was only the second ever remake of a game I had played after Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, the remake of the first game in the series, and I was enchanted. Shadows of Valentia was an incredible update when it came to presentation especially, and the team over at Intelligent Systems adjusted the gameplay system and style of the game to suit modern audiences, while still capturing how unique this entry in the series is compared to other Fire Emblem titles, and even introducing a new series staple. The story featuring Alm and Celica focused on their diverging paths with plenty of lovable characters on both sides. Alm especially is my favorite lord in the series, and other characters like May, Leon, Gray, Celica, and of course Claire captured my attention. The remake augmented the script of the original with a lot more flavor and detail without making the game feel stretched out. They brought a lot of characterization to the overall interactions and added some original characters who varied from just okay to absolute standouts in the series history. This was enhanced by the voice acting, which was across the board great for the characters. The remake added a lot of personality in their short but satisfying support conversations, and that is something previous Fire Emblem remakes struggled with. Then you have gameplay, which, while it has its flaws with map design and the frequency of ship battles, also has a lot of fun systems. You have the ability to pick classes for the villagers in your army, fancy combat arts to take down your enemies, and the remake added the now series staple turn wheel to the game, which was a big help saving me time on resetting when one of my units died. Beyond that, the strategy remained with some twists that I really enjoyed, such as increasing the archer's range, which added a new dimension to both offense and defense, magic that takes health points to cast, and who could forget how powerful dread fighters were. Overall though, the biggest update was to the presentation. The visuals are beautiful. I mean, look at these character designs. There are new cutscenes that are well directed and drive home the story incredibly well, helped by the music. Dear Lord, this soundtrack is gorgeous. From the driving March to Deliverance to the tranquil Arc of Dawn, each song is a blast to listen to. Of course, none could top Twilight of the Gods for an epic final battle track, but you'll just have to play the game to hear that one. Believe me, even if the game wasn't as good as it is, it still might be worth it to hear that song in action. In short, Shadows of Valentia updated the original game brilliantly on all fronts, allowing the game to stand out in spite of the black sheep reputation that the original game got. I know it's not necessarily easy to play since it is stuck on the 3DS, but I hope someday Nintendo and Intelligent Systems decide to port it over to Switch/Switch 2, along with Awakening and Fates while we're at it, so more people can enjoy this game. I want to thank all those that joined me for this video. It was a hectic time for a lot of people, so I truly appreciate hearing from all of them, so thank you to J-Man, Mad Kaiser, Avenger Mags, Crimson Rosso, Arcry, and CaliQ Games for joining me for this video. When you inevitably want to check out what they do beyond this collaboration, there are links to their channel/other work in the description. Thank you for tuning in for this video, and let me know in the comments what are some of your favorite remakes or remasters that you've played, and are there any games you're hoping will someday join this list? Please, Sega, bring us Skies of Arcadia already. Leave this video a like and subscribe if you have not already, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day, and happy gaming.